A new offseason and new opportunities for your dynasty teams. That and more this week on the Football Guys Dynasty Show. And Jordan, new dynasty leagues, new startup drafts, and we're going to discuss how to find your leagues, how to find maybe new formats and great fits for you, whether it's orphans or a brand new league.
Yeah, and with some of our favorite teams exiting the playoffs and tragic circumstances in the past 48 hours, it's time to look forward to a new thing. So, yeah, I mean, this is I always think at this time of year, league selection, be careful not jumping into a ton of them, right? Because it can be very addictive to just keep doing them, right? Set a budget for yourself. Don't do those sorts of things. I think is a responsible thing to do, and then try something new. And you and I, the story I always tell about this is you and I are in a league. It's a two quarterback, 2 tight end. We're in it. We co GM it, and it's 2 tight end, and it's even juiced 2 tight end. And the greatest part about that is we are thinking about players. I mean, you're maniacal about tight ends as it is, but we're thinking about
Chris
players that
Manhertz.
Yes, we're thinking about players that are way down the line of what we typically would do if we're playing in a more shallow league. And that's literally double the depth of like an FFPC league, which we also play in. And so, playing in that has really sort of opened our eyes to different guys like James O'Shaughnessy, right? Like Chris, Manhertz, like a lot of different players that I think has made me a lot better dynasty GM for other leagues. So then when I go play regular, or a tight end premium one, more of a stock-ish roster build, but it might be tight end premium. It might be a shallower depth. All of a sudden, like it's like swinging it's like taking a batting weight off. And it's really, that all that mental reps and stuff like that, that we've done at a deeper level with the tight ends, we're using that to our advantage in shallower leagues. So that's something that I think is a great thing to do, is try something different and try something that exposes you to different positional premiums that you might not otherwise have played, because it's going to really help you in other leagues.
Yeah, I think you have to look at 2 or 3 different aspects. Because if you are looking to join a league, and I say if you're joining an orphan, say, what are you looking to do? Some people want that kind of project. Some people want a team that's more ready to go. So you need to analyze that roster carefully. You might want to dig in a little closer to the league. Is there 4 vacancies in a 12-team league? What's the deal behind that? Is it just a random off season, or is there something systemic and there might be more teams on an exodus than the following off season? If you're looking to join a new league, I would say, as you said, are you looking to scratch a certain itch with a new type of format? Oh, I only play in 1 quarterback leagues. I've been looking to maybe play Superflex, dive into IDP, maybe get into some shallow Devy format that is going to, again, cross pollinate with your rookie evaluations when you get there. You're going to be more well versed in those college prospects in advance as they go through their career. I think another consideration would be the type of platform, right? Whether it's FFPC, it could be on Sleeper, it could be on My Fantasy League. There's a number, ESPN, Yahoo. There's a number of platforms that you can host dynasty leagues that some are free, some are pay, and there's a variety of spectrums there. But also, if you play all of your leagues on a certain platform, you might not want to transition over with 1 or 2 of your leagues to another one. So all these things, and I think what you preached is patience and a calculated approach to this, because a lot of people dive in, and we see it all the time. They jump in, and 24 hours later, they're already drafting. And then they're kind of picking up the rules, the format. It's on this platform. I'm figuring out how things go for trading and all these other things as they go. And if you don't digest that, a lot of times you can jump in and almost want to jump with 1 foot out by the time the startup draft is over.
Yeah, it's totally true. And yeah, and we've seen that, right? And you always say something too, which is, spend an extra day or 2 talking about the rules, right? Getting that stuff. Everyone just wants to draft and leave everything incomplete. Think about the rules. Think about, is this, is the commissioner someone that you know? Right. I think that's something that's important too. I play in a couple of leagues that have commissioners that commission a whole bunch of leagues. And I know that, the money's good. I know that they're not going anywhere. Right. I sort of know all those things. It's nice. And the other thing too about it is, if you really want to play Dynasty, you want the league to be around. right? So do you want to draft and then in 18 months it's folding, right? That's no fun. So you sort of want that longevity as well. So I do think being selective on who you play with, and how particularly how the money is held. League Safe I think is a good option. I know that people have had some problems with PayPal. Doing that sort of thing. There's been money seized. I guess it violates terms and conditions of PayPal. So just those sorts of things, just thinking about in advance. It's all stuff that you don't pay attention to, and then it sucks, and then you're kicking yourself, a year from now.
Yeah, and know maybe what your strengths and weaknesses are. If it's something you want to work on, like for example, if you're coming from redraft world, and I know probably most of the listener base is already in a few dynasty leagues, but if you're transitioning or very early in that progression and you're used to 15, 18, 20-man rosters, FFPC, where it's 20-man rosters and it contracts in the offseason, that's a transition point. I view that as a deeper keeper league, if you will. And if you go straight from redraft land to 40-man rosters and a bunch of premiums and 2 tight end and all this stuff, it's baptism by fire. You're jumping into the deep end. So that may be what you're looking for. Hey, I just want the fire hose and I want to absorb all that, take my lumps, and I'm going to learn a ton. It's going to be just a tidal wave of information and learning curve over the next 12 months. That may be what you're looking for. You may be that type of person, that I'm 9 years old and I can be the stud on, some secondary little league team, or I can go play in the higher league and warm the bench and play 2 innings a game and get 1 at bat. You might fall into one of those 2 categories. I want to be the star on the team, but be in, the B team, the B conference, or you may want to play on the A team, but just be an ancillary piece. Different people have different mindsets on that. So just know that learning curve, and are you ready for it? And again, if you're not, what better time than now? So I'm not going to tell you not to join those, but just know it's going to be a bigger transition than just, I got to learn a few more players. There's a lot more nuance to doing well in the format than just that. So a lot of things to consider for what type. But I will say, the longer I go, I always have to ask myself, what does this league add to the portfolio in terms of, is there something that I haven't done before? What makes this unique? Just beyond it's a new league. But I will say we are in January, February type time frame, and honestly, before free agency, I really find this is one of the best times of year where things are fresh. People are still sticky on what just happened, and not a lot of people have done the offseason analysis of looking ahead. So I find some of the best values out there right now when things are fresh, and honestly, the NFL season's still going on.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think the tactics you employ now are actually way different than the tactics that you can employ in August, right? Because I'll give you a perfect example. Tom Brady, right? What you do with Tom Brady now versus what you do with Tom Brady in August, right? You don't really want to touch him right now. You sort of have to build your quarterback room around other people. In August, and I did this last year. In August, I was just like, I'll take Tom Brady at quarterback 20, and and he's a deep playoff run quarterback on my dynasty team. Whereas if I'm doing that right now, right, I stand to lose a quarterback if he retires, right? Same thing with Rodgers. And as you sort of get, I don't think Rodgers can retire, but you got the problems. You got a lot of these guys that have uncertainty with them. Do you want to draft them now or not, right? So I think there's different strategies as well in terms of what you value now versus later in the calendar, which I think more and more I play Dynasty, the more and more I sort of realize that the calendar plays a big impact on sort of how I'm going to tactically go about my strategy.
Yeah, we've mentioned before. I mean, January, February, the earlier it is, the less risk you want to impose on yourself. And I think there was a joke of, not that, this is how your team and all your players come to fruition, but if you just sit here, you draft all, rookie draft slots, which is commonplace until, at least past the NFL combine. And sometimes before the NFL draft, you're still drafting draft positions, 101, 102, et cetera, in your league. And then, you can just trade those picks away. Once it comes time to your rookie draft, you offload a lot of those for just veterans that you didn't have to take the chance. A rookie 101 does not have the risk factor of veteran XYZ of an injury, something happening on their depth chart, a free agency, a trade, anything, a rookie coming in of note. So a lot of things can affect their market value, but yet you have certain things or certain profiles that are more insulated than others. So January, I always say in startups, is about reducing the risk, because there's a lot of ways to muck up even in the top 8 to 10 picks of your draft.
Rookie picks at this time of year, they don't tear ACLs, they don't get in domestic fights, right? They don't get suspended, they don't get positive drug tests, they don't get COVID, they don't get any of the things that would otherwise impact somebody's value. And that's, I think, a really good point. And honestly, like, you can, I've done this more and more, which is actually accumulate a whole bunch of rookie picks, but at the same time, I'm competing this year. And if you could sort of pull that off and I think it's totally possible, especially right now, especially the way the running back market's going to open up. It's going to be just, if you're willing to sort of lean into that, it's a really unorthodox strategy. I think has a ton of value in this particular market, but now is the perfect time to sort of accumulate those rookie picks. And then, if you can sort of get that part of your roster right, that's actually competitive, then you can add to that competitive core with the rookie picks along the way. And I think that as you get more certainty, you can play out those situations a little bit better. So I think this time of year, again, I would rather kind of go early or late, because I think late, there's other dynamics too. I think the competition's easier if you're drafting in August than if you're drafting in January, because the people that are drafting in January are dynasty-aholics. And your less interested dynasty GM isn't going to be drafting in January, right? They're taking January through March off, right? And so that's the other thing too. You're balancing probably a tougher competition right now.
Yeah, I would say my least favorite times are April. That doldrum, like 3 weeks before the NFL draft, where basically nothing's happening. We used to have, I think, a smattering of individual pro day workouts, but really nothing's happening. Free agency is long, and we're just waiting. And then the other part is after rookie draft season, which is which is May, and then June, where not a lot. It's at 4 to 6 weeks before training camp opens up. That's the other span where people get antsy and they draft. And honestly, those are my two least favorite, because, in July you're drafting, and we saw Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins. I mean, things change in a hurry, and it feels like you'd almost want to draft right after that last preseason game or something. That might be the true lead up to the season. Like, oh, let's draft now. Individual rookies. We have a lot of information, like you said, and it's the opposite of right now, where we're peeking through keyholes, as Sig Bloom likes to say. Chad Parsons, Jordan McNamara, episode 88. Nice number there of the Football Guys Dynasty Show. And do want to shout out the Football Guys merch, because shop.footballguys.com. They have a ton of great stuff. Yours is in the mail, right? It is fast coming. And I actually wear this is a custom Black Eye Joe, but a lot of that, the official gear and merchandise, look like a champion over there. Quality designs, materials, hats, shirts, outerwear, coffee cups, everything you can think of to represent and sport that Football Guys, and basically build a champion. You got to look the part, right? You got to, what is it? Look good, play good. I think that was it. Deion Sanders or somebody that was look good, play good. Certainly not, the guys that have their jerseys untucked on purpose. They just start running around there. That is not Black Eye Joe and Football Guys. So just wanted to shout out for shop.footballguys.com over there. So we got some trades this week, a couple from FFPC and otherwise here. So let's dig in. And this is a rookie draft question specifically. And this is one we come up with every single year. FFPC, one quarterback. We got 112 for a 23 first. They were a high-level finisher this year, but obviously they got one more season before that pick becomes declared.
I would take the 2023 first, because when you do that, right? So I think generally you don't do that with like 102 or something like that, but the value of the random future shot at a pick is worth more than it's worth about 105 if you're just looking at the raw value of the pick. And then you sort of have to balance what matters to you in terms of, waiting, time discount versus in FFPC. It's really important. You and I did this. It's really important that we that you your roster positions, right? Your limits are really tight. So if you have assets outside of that, it makes a ton of sense. So I would take the pick here for those reasons. And again, you're getting a shot at a random future first. I would take the 2023 first. And again, you can spend it at any point along the way if you so choose. I would do that because I think it gives you a lot of flexibility here going forward.
Yeah, 112 is a known, and not to be callous about this, but a 20-man roster that cuts to 14 positional players in the offseason, 112 after one season can absolutely be on your roster fringe if that rookie season does not go well. And so you take, yes, that could be 110, 109, but also if you just miss the playoffs, you don't get a bye in that toilet bowl feeder system to gain draft position. But if you're one of the better teams, you got a pretty good shot to end up high up as long as you win a game or two there late in the season. So, yeah, I would absolutely take my shot with the knowledge I have. Cursory knowledge, it's very, very early of this class. It's one quarterback. And 112, again, the format plays a role. This might be something that different format where you got to all the way, just lose your way to the 101. That's a different circumstance if it's 28-man rosters and not 20 with no cut downs. I mean, this all shades it, but in FFPC, I think this is a slam dunk you do every time.
Can we change the facts a little bit?
Sure.
At what level, same roster, right? Same FFPC. At what level would you not do this trade? So what would the this year pick have to be to not do this trade?
I think if it's the last 2 or 3 picks of the round in general, you would do this one. I think when you start venturing to 9 and 8, especially again, this is a team that finished second. I know in FFPC that probably means you got 3 or 4 strong core players that probably aren't going anywhere. Yes, it's random. Yes, a couple injuries. It's shallow. Everyone can catch up to you a lot easier in that format. I get all that. But even if I think you would hold tight longer than this if you were sitting at 106, 107, and you still didn't like the class. I think you would wait and you could find a better deal, whether that's getting a second round pick back in a trade down scenario or a player that would make your 14. I think you would be able to get more on the plus side than just a random. And to me, this was one of the better teams, just, that was, they probably earned 112 and they're like, let me take a shot. And they maybe tried other teams with higher projected picks or whatever, or weaker teams, but it didn't work out. So they ended up taking this one.
With the roster constraints, if it was a deeper roster, how would that matter to you? Right. So if instead of playing 20 man, it's 40 man, right? Yeah. Where that 112 is going to be on your roster.
Oh yeah, you have a huge window for like 2-3 years, and yeah, it's probably deeper lineups as well. So yeah, that's a huge part of this deal that I mentioned once, but I think it bears repeating that the shallower rosters that you really, I mean, I've said it before for people, if you're in 22-man rosters, even 24, first and second rounders, yes, but beyond that, those are waiver picks. I mean, they really are, and they turn into waiver picks quickly. 40-man, not really, 35, things like that. But the shallower you get, it's really about first and second rounders. And a lot of times in that second round, can I trade for a veteran that I like better, that offers more promise now? Can I trade up to a different zone in the first round with that second rounder? I'm willing to do a lot of stuff just because I don't like, because I don't think people realize how close to I just don't like drafting with rookie picks anymore when they're literally one of the last 2 or 3 players on my roster, because I know I'm going to get to week 1 and be like, well, you're kind of John Travolta. I'm looking around. I want something else. I'm getting antsy. I want to pick up Cordero Patterson, or actually I should say Wayne Gallman, dead wrong. And then adjust to Cordero Patterson the following week. But yeah, I just, you want to do something else. So if you're drafting that rookie at 309 and and that's player number 19 out of 25, I'm more fine with it than 24 out of 25.
Right.
Because there's no allegiance there. All right, we're going to get one more FFPC in here, which is a 23 first. So already Jordan is getting a little creepy crawly with the skin. It's like, I don't like this. Can it be 112 of this year's class instead? But this is one quarterback is 23 first for Hunter Renfrow.
Give me the pick. I like Renfrow. I think he's interesting. That said, I don't think it's really easy to replicate pretty close to him at a place that's not going to.
Well, it's a flex spot. I mean, it's two wide receivers mandatory. He doesn't really fit in there. I know he finished higher than wide receiver 24 technically, but I think in a dynasty sense, he doesn't fit there.
Right. So Brandin Cooks will cost you a lot less than this. right? I mean, I think
A second,
maybe Keenan
yeah.
Allen might cost you less than this. I mean, there's a whole range of guys that would cost you less.
We've said
than this,
before,
but
we don't like trading the future picks. We like getting more information about a current year. And, we waited all the way. I mean, we didn't have prospects potentially of making a pick, and we waited all the way till on the clock. And I think we got a better deal trading that pick than if we had traded it in January. That's just a general. I'm not going to say there's not exceptions, because there are. You can get a good deal. And I have different price points, like something that I would want a little more now, a little more juice, because we don't know how the rest of the process plays out. But I know people get squeamish, like, oh, I'm going to get on the clock and I won't have any options. You'll have options.
Right. And the other thing too, like at 23 first at this point, right, that if you're going to spend that, you for darn sure want to make sure that player is going to help you. Right. You really want that player to help you.
And how do you know Hunter Renfrow helps you? He's not a true
January.
He's not a good dynasty asset. I'll say that first of all. He could be a good producer, but I don't think he'll ever get home as being a liquid dynasty asset. He could catch 100 balls this next year. I still don't think he's going to be a durable liquid dynasty asset. And so wouldn't you rather spend that pick much closer to the season or in season, because people will give you Zeke plus probably for that pick in October if that team is not a strong contender? Like, you have a lot of options when you get there. And I can't imagine spending it in January.
It's such a bad time to do this deal.
For an ancillary wide receiver.
Right. It's such a bad time to and there's almost no chance that he stays like at that level of cost the whole way between now and whatever December or whatever the trade deadline will be next year, right? I mean, I generally don't. I mean, the more we do this, right, and the more we're in on, what's the difference between CeeDee Lamb and Brandin Cooks this year? It was 1 point in PPR, and it was how many firsts was the difference of that deal in July? I just can't get on board with moving up at the wide receiver position for picks. It just makes zero sense to me. The more we do this, like the only reason that you do that is because you want to post about it on Twitter. Not because you want to win games. And I'm not even like it has gotten to be such a difference to me in terms of how I view that process of especially acquiring wide receivers, that I don't need them to be particularly sexy. I just need them to be productive, right? And I want them to be innings eaters, and I want them to roll out there and know pretty much what I'm going to get. And that's why I have Brandin Cooks as being my most rostered dynasty asset, and Mike Evans is right after him, right? It's really, what you're largely what you're going to get, and they don't cost you this, right? And so that's the I have a really hard time paying future first to move up for a wide receiver, because I think it's a waste of assets.
2 rapid fire questions from Jonathan in the chat. What's Brandin Cooks worth right now? What's he worth, or what will you have to pay? Two different questions there.
He's worth. I mean, it's the most.
He's worth more. I'll say that.
Right. I mean, it's just, again, it's a classic innings eater, right? I mean, he's going to be a top 20, he's been a top 20 guy basically if he's been healthy, and it hasn't been his rookie season, and it hasn't mattered the circumstance, right? It hasn't mattered who his teammates were. It hasn't mattered where he's played. He does what he does, right? And so, I mean,
he's top 24 seasons in his career. Is that pretty good? Yeah. 6?
What is that? 8 seasons, right? He missed his
6 out of 8 seasons. Yeah.
Right. He missed the year in LA when he got hurt.
On how many teams? So guy can travel.
Yeah.
Productive wide receiver willing to travel.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you need to pay. I saw him going, late 30s into the 40s. I would
late
smash
second.
that cost.
Right? Late second.
Totally.
If you have 210, 211, 212. Yeah. So this is what we mean by buying profiles. Like there's a right price to do it early, because you're buying the profile. We just said, 6 seasons in the top 24. Guy's not 35 years old. Like let's keep this in perspective on, like, you could do a lot of Brandin Cooks top 24 seasons versus young wide receiver X right now. And I guarantee it would be, you could create these polls. So it'd be 95% on the young guy side, and Cooks would crush them. Like it wouldn't be all that close. You could probably add 2 or 3 of those guys up, and Cooks will still beat them. So
Right.
that's the kind of laughability this has. And then on the
Right.
other side, you said you're not you usually the pay up for young wide receiver guy. How many
I'm
firsts is
usually not
Jaylen
the pay
Waddle?
up for wide receiver guy.
How
I'm
many
usually
firsts is
not that
Jaylen
guy.
Waddle worth?
This one's a one. I mean, again, I don't like doing these. I don't like.
Well, you get,
Um,
put your
I think
analyst
he's
hat
a.
on for a second, Jordan. Just for one
I,
second.
I mean, I think he warrants probably discussion in the top, absolutely the top 12 of wide receivers. He might even be top 10, right? I mean, and it depends what you value in that range. I think you look at a rookie season like his. I mean, that has a long trajectory of production. And
It's
again,
a
here's
historically significant profile.
absolutely. And when you, I think the balance that you have with him is interesting. And this is a balance that I would strike probably in the wrong direction 2 or 3 years ago, which would be he came out of nowhere from college. I can't trust it. Well, you know what? He did it where it mattered, and now I think I can trust it. Right? That's sort of the way that I lean. So I would lean into him.
And the
That
NFL
he's pretty
already
good.
thought he was a good player, top
Right.
10 pick. And again, we can say whether or not that was the right move, but Miami also traded up for him.
Right.
Because they figured he
Right.
wasn't getting there.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, in an existing league, do I want to pay multiple firsts for that? I mean, that I think there's a difference
Well,
between
there's a
doing that.
positional value question more than
Right.
like, is Jaylen Waddle's profile good? And is that like in a vacuum? If you're
Correct.
eliminating other wide, like, see, the problem is, Jordan, we come into this conversation from thinking and knowing that like a late first to early second gets guys like Mike Evans and Keenan Allen. And it's like,
Right.
so we come from that prism. And it's like, oh, well, you should give 101 and 105 for Jaylen Waddle. It's like, well, we kind of are viewing that as like, well, look at all the options we have. So that's the prism. So the problem with Jaylen Waddle and for me is it's a pretty massive tiering, like at wide receiver right now. Like there's a lot of young guys that have produced enough to say that there's confidence. There's the old guard of guys 28, 29 plus years old that have been there, done that for half a decade or more. So the problem is you mix all those things together, and I think their valuation in terms of how I value things, they're pretty close. Because you're looking at expected years remaining, the confidence factor of hitting for top 12, top 24, whatever it is. And so there's risk with the younger players. There's plenty of guys that have been one-hit wonders or just things haven't come together to be an alpha. And then there's older guys that have been an alpha for quite some time. So you put all those things together. And I know from a Dynamo Dynasty factor, that's not a real thing, but the DDF, that if they, that Jaylen Waddle is very high. Because 23 years old, top 15 or so for year one, high pedigree. And he did that with Tua. So it's not like he was under the best circumstances. And he still didn't do his thing, which he does best, which is speed. I want to see him run deep overs about 10 times a game. Like he didn't do any of that. He ran 5-yard speed outs. He learned that from Evan Ingram. So I think that but can you really say like, oh, I'd rather pay an extra first to get Jaylen Waddle instead of T. Higgins or instead of Chris Godwin or Deontay Johnson, or like you start doing these games. So it's the arbitrage, Jonathan, which makes this complicated when it's just like in a vacuum. I think in a vacuum, he's worth 2 firsts. To just go to your question, that doesn't mean that I'm sitting there and that's one of my action plans for the offseason.
Right. Yeah. I just wouldn't. Chad put it better because I wouldn't be tempted to do that.
That's
deal,
the
I hadn't thought about.
Well, when someone says what
firms.
it's worth, that's different than a recommended action plan.
Totally.
Two very different questions. All right, we got one more here. 10-team league. So, getting tight in here. Phone booth. 1 quarterback as well. Christian McCaffrey, Chuba Hubbard, Odell Beckham for 101 and 107.
I'm running to take the McCaffrey side as fast as I can.
But he's so old.
He's like 25.
101 is insulated. 101 can't tear their ACL before the draft.
That's true. But there's especially in the format, right?
Leading the witness.
If it's a different format, I still think the answer to this is McCaffrey, but we could talk about, if it was multiple first like last year, like if this was last year's class, would you in a super flex league with tight end premium, would you do this deal? Right. I mean, I think this
is not looking like a great 101 class.
Correct. So
where we sit in January.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I think the context of this obviously matters. And last year, would I have done this deal? I don't know. We would have to, in certain formats, I think it could have been closer. But yeah, I mean, in this deal, like you do it, right? And I know that you're taking on the risk of the McCaffrey side, but you're also taking on I think there's one player in this entire equation that's going to tilt the axis of your league, and that's McCaffrey. And I think
especially tilt the
do
axis
that.
of a 10-team league. They
Totally.
didn't mention roster size, but again, 10-team leagues are normally not 35-man rosters.
Mhm.
But it's not that 101 or 107 are close to the line. But what it means is studs have even more value. It's
Right.
probably not a deep roster. It's probably not a deep lineup. And McCaffrey is a hammer throw. So we're talking about a guy that, again, not too far removed from 25, 30 point per game seasons. So try to find that.
Right.
Even with a 101, try to find that. Good
Right.
luck. There's plenty of 101s.
Plus, you might in this league be able to pivot off of a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. Right? There's some additional equity there that you might be able to get in terms of a second round pick if you want some picks back or something like that. That I think he's probably rehabbed his value enough, even though I think it's largely fraudulent, that that you might be able to use him as another piece in a deal.
Let me ask you this. If you're in this league, now let's say, again, you're not going to wait till on the clock. And frankly, I would say you need to wait because in a 10-team format like this, taking a wide receiver at 101 is not really the play. It's usually not the play, but it's definitely not the play here. So you want to wait for that juicy running back landing spot or good enough pedigree or whatever the combination is to cash out. But if you were coaching someone to cash out now with 101 and 107, do you think McCaffrey plus is kind of the best you can do? Or would there be a different, 101 can get you, Zeke plus this. Would you be going about it a different way in terms of the return for those picks?
Well, this harkens back to what we talked about earlier in terms of what you're trying to accomplish at this time of year, right? You don't want to take a loss on somebody, right? If we're doing this deal in August, right? I think that's different than if we're doing it now. I mean, if it was me, I would get the absolute best asset that I could do, right? And this is one where I might, in this context, I might actually do this for Justin Jefferson. I typically don't give multiple firsts for a wide receiver. I'd probably do this for Justin Jefferson in this format. That would sort of be, I would go big game hunting, right? I wouldn't take, hey, I'm going to 3 or 4 discount guys. I wouldn't go after Zeke. I want someone that's going to make a consequence to my team, right? Give me an elite asset, right? Give me Justin Jefferson, right? Jamar Chase is probably a little bit less than that, but McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, right? Najee Harris, right? And these might seem crazy right now, but just wait. Like nothing gets the Dynasty community more fired up than watching a bunch of 20-year-olds run around in spandex, right? Yeah. I mean, everyone gets all fired up in March. And
just wait till a 220-pound running back runs 4.49.
Right, just it's going to explode. And so yeah, I mean, all of that. I think that cycle of the Dynasty calendar is still it's still on the calendar, right? We're still to come. So I think that stuff will happen, and you'll get more excitement about this rookie class, even though people think it's down.
A couple quotes this week from the Footballguys Dynasty Forum. You can jump in for the Dynasty Trades, which is always a vibrant community there. You can share trades, you can comment, and good discussion throughout on a player value. So check that out over at the Shark Pool at footballguys.com, as well as signing up for that daily email update from Joe Bryant. That's on the homepage, right top corner. You can check that out as well. Get all the updates through the busy news cycle of the off season. So one of the quotes here, and I know you will have the exact number. I'm going to give you. You can go through your reams of paper coming up in 1 second, Jordan.
Boy.
The 101. I'm going to slow play the quote here. The 101 in rookie drafts is about an early 3rd round startup value in most years.
It's 20. The pick is 20.
It's 20. It's 20. One was that one quarterback or super flex, or doesn't matter.
I actually did it in start 1. And then it's tough because we don't have a good sample of Superflex stuff, and I don't trust some of the early ADP either. So it's been but I've sort of looked at it, and it has held pretty close to there. I mean, I think there's a wider variance on it in Superflex, but it is a second round startup pick asset, and it has, since I've sort of learned that, it hasn't been worse than that. So, I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, right? I mean, last year it was up there as well. I mean, again, that's start one. I think you had two guys above. I think Edwards-Helaire and Jonathan Taylor were both above 20. So, I mean,
in some years when you have like the Zeke year, the Barkley year, there's exceptions, but Mark Ingram, I think, was even close to this, where they venture close to first round, if not, getting into the late first round in some of those sample sizes. Yeah,
totally. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a pretty durable asset, and it kind of feels weird that you start your draft, and whether maybe you trade down, but it's like you're sitting there in the second round somewhere and you draft 101. A non-player. I'm always thinking of the player with the jersey just 1.01, running around, a faceless, bodiless, no arms, like a scarecrow almost, just wandering around the field, turning into something in a few months. But it is highly insulated there.
Mm-hmm.
The other quote here is, this year's top 7 skill position players should produce at least 2 NFL caliber running backs. 3 if the kid from Michigan is for real. I love throwing that in. And 3 to 4 starting wide receivers. That sounds like a great class, Jordan.
It does sound like a really good class.
I want 107 right now.
I'm really excited.
I'm ready. Why get 103? 107 is exactly the same.
Right. Yeah. I haven't. I doubt that that's true. I'm hopeful. I haven't studied the class much at all.
So. Their username is glass half full, by the way.
They're optimistic. They're optimistic. So
I can't believe, like, even with round 1 pedigree, though, the thing I wanted to comment on was just, let's assume we are getting minimum. I mean, the early projections are we're going to have at least 3 to 4 wide receivers with round 1 pedigree, as it's currently projected. A lot of time to go, but that, I mean, the fact that all of them would turn into starting NFL wide receivers, no. And I would say, how quickly?
Right.
I mean, Jalen Reagor is going, come on, guys. That's enough dirt. Right. Get the shovel away from me.
Right.
It just doesn't happen. I mean, again, round 1, you're expected to come in but rookie season impact, the time factor involved. So more and more in rookie drafting and just rookie picks, and how do I want to deploy this selection for my team? I think more and more about that time aspect. I think it really is important. And this whole, you're insulated for the whole first rookie season. You can draft a guy, see how they play or don't play, get hurt, don't get hurt. And then I can just decide the January after, I now don't like you. I'll trade you away. And I drafted you at 109 the previous year. Now I don't care what ADP says. I don't care what people are doing in startup drafts. I know for a fact you draft wide receiver X at, the late first round, and it's a pretty middling rookie season. They're not liquid. They're not liquid the next year.
Right.
The next off season, I don't care if they're going in a similar spot in startup drafts. In an existing league, that marketplace, passed on them. So a cross section had a chance a few picks before you to be in the marketplace of selecting that player. They said no. And if you got teams behind you that may not have been interested to begin with, and now they saw a non-impact, ho-hum, shoulder shrug rookie season. I don't think this is as vibrant of a trade market as people think. I'll just get out. I'll trade that guy for a future first. Good luck. So this whole you're insulated, free time is on your side. I don't buy that stuff. And so I think you have to think long and hard with what you're going to utilize these picks for, because if you're drafting a young player, developmental on the back end of your roster, I don't think you have these 2-3 years of latitude. It's almost like NFL quarterbacks. Yeah, we'll just draft a guy, let him sit, let him simmer, and 5 years later they'll win a Super Bowl for us. No, I don't think it. No, we're seeing guys in the second year on the hot seat, and third, what is it? Set of steak knives, and third place you're fired. That's kind of how we're operating. It's a microwave. Everything's a microwave, and Dynasty works the same way. So this whole rookies get a pass for a while. They don't get a pass. And when you see your peers in the Dynasty rookie drafts producing in year 1, and your guy or wide receiver X or whoever it is not, it's a big deal. And the flexibility goes away.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself.
All right, that's going to put a bow on this episode. So we're talking about joining a league, and again, the Shark Pool is a great place. There's forming new leagues, find a league, find an orphan. So you can find that as one of the big forums that's available over at Footballguys. Encourage you to do so. We discussed things to look for in those formats, a few of those critical dynasty trades, and as always, led to a vibrant discussion on player value, formats, and team construction as well. I am Chad Parsons. He is Jordan McNamara. And until next time, good luck in your dynasty leagues. Round ball, peach basket.